Hi there and welcome back to the channel. I'm the GCSE science teacher, and in today's lesson we'll be learning about stem cells for GCSE biology. Specific content covered today includes the definition of stem cells, the location, their uses, and an evaluation. So let's get started. Now, whether you are learning GCSE biology in terms of triple science, higher combined, foundation combined, or any other version of this, you actually need to be aware of the definition of a stem cell. So a stem cell is an undifferentiated cell of an organism which is capable of giving rise to many more cells of the same type and from which certain other cells can arise from differentiation. Now, that's the exam board version of the definition, but what does that actually mean? Well, it means that a stem cell has the ability to become any kind of cell that it needs to be, and it can also become more stem cells. That's useful because a organism will require new cells to be made as it develops over time, and especially during the developmental stage as it's an infant to an adult, etc. But it's also important so that it can replace any damaged cells as well. And we're going to talk about the locations of these specific stem cells now. So there are lots of different types of stem cells and they each have their slight tweaks. So let's run through them. The first one is the human embryo stem cells. These, like I say, would be found in the human embryo. So just to recap, an embryo is a bundle of cells, around 300 or so, and they form from the sperm cell and the egg cell fusing together. Or their nuclei fusing together to form a zygote during the fertilization event. When that zygote actually starts to divide by mitosis, those cells start to develop and you get an embryo. And in the center of that cluster of cells, those embryonic stem cells have the ability to become any kind of cell they need to. Whether it's a skin cell or an eye cell or part of the circulatory system. That's really important, especially as the embryo develops and it leads into a fetus. However, once the child is born, let's say, it will continue to develop over time, and you have no longer any more embryonic stem cells. You end up with stem cells in the bone marrow. So, if we were to take out a piece of bone and chop it in half, you'd see those stem cells in the center. Um, and what those stem cells are used for is to create more blood cells. So if you look back at my specialized cell video, you'll see that the red blood cell doesn't actually have a nucleus. So it divides by this process of the adult bone marrow creating more erythrocytes or more blood cells. The other type of stem cell you need to be aware of is a meristem. And this is found in plants, specifically at the growing tips, so the roots and the shoots. And those stem cells are really useful in creating new cells of any kind for the plant at any point in its lifetime. So it's quite unique that a plant actually can divide by mitosis and it can reproduce asexually and sexually, but this will allow for clones to be made of a plant. So if you take a cutting of a plant and you put it in a pot and plant it there, it will actually form a new fully grown individual, which is really useful um, and actually quite unique compared to, say, adult bone marrow, etc. So, what are the uses of stem cells? Well, currently, adult stem cells or adult bone marrow stem cells are used for bone marrow transplants, and that's been happening for years. Specifically, people who require a bone marrow transplant, perhaps they have an issue with some of their blood cells, they need them replacing. A useful option. But as research develops, there has been more interest in actually trying to grow embryonic stem cells. And this is because there have been diseases like diabetes, which affects the pancreas and the regulation of glucose. Again, I'll talk more about this in a future video. But also paralysis. So, anyone who has suffered with an injury, maybe to their spinal cord, is not able to move. Um, because of that, there are treatments now that they're looking at in actually replacing those damaged cells and actually growing matched perfect matches of the cell or the tissue that's needed. And to do that, they use embryonic stem cells because those embryos will be perfectly matched to the DNA of the patient, so there's less rejection. But there are some issues with this, and I'll talk about that in a moment. Also, stem cells from meristems in plants can be used to produce clones, and this is really helpful in the agricultural industry because we can actually grow plants much more quickly, and this actually can increase profits. We can also protect rare species of plants from extinction, and we can also copy or clone plants that are resistant to certain diseases after genetic modification. So it's a really helpful tool. Is the idea of using stem cells in both medical and agricultural industry. But like anything in science, there's always an important part of it is to looking at that evaluation and actually to weigh up the risks and benefits. When you or if you are coming across one of these questions to say evaluate something, you really need to do the following. You need to give the pros, the cons, but also a conclusion. Because when you are given a question that asks you to evaluate in the exam, it's often going to be worth 6 marks and it will be a leveled answer. And what that means is it will require you to structure your answer in an argument form. So you need to give data and back up the statements and then make an informed decision. And that's really important for those types of questions to get full marks. So, in this question, it could be evaluate the use of stem cells in medicine. And some of the benefits and risks I've put in here include the benefits are that they can be used to treat diabetes and paralysis, and that stem cells can be used in further research. However, there are potential risks with using stem cells because they can actually transfer viral infections. Some people have ethical or religious objections, especially with regards to the destruction of embryos. Now, this information is often given to you in a table, and all you need to do is utilize it in the exam to actually structure your argument and then give a conclusion. So I could then say, looking at that, I have 3 risks and 2 benefits. Therefore, I believe the use of stem cells in medical industry is challenging and there needs to be more research in the matter. That's kind of on the fence, but you know what I mean. I'm trying to give like I'm kind of saying it's quite a risky thing in this scenario. Okay, so I hope you found that helpful. If you did, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Share this video with someone you think who might find it helpful too. You can also find more GCSE content of mine on Instagram and TikTok at the GCSE Science Teacher. Thank you so much for watching. I've been the GCSE Science Teacher and you have been curious. Until next time, bye.